Marie Osmond has been in the news for most of her life. She had it all, from singing with her renowned family to being a big celebrity on TV. But behind the smiles and singing was a woman who was going through things that no one else could see. Fans could never have imagined how heartbreak, hidden battles, and catastrophes changed her life. And now, at 65, her life is nothing like the dazzling life we used to know. Come with us as we examine more closely at her life now and then. Marie Osmond's early years and how she became famous. On October 13, 1959, Olive Marie Osmond was born in Ogden, Utah. She was the eighth child of 9 and the only girl in the big Osmond family. Olive May and George Verl Osmond were her parents. They reared their kids in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Verl and Tom, two of her brothers, were born deaf. The other brothers started singing together as a barbershop quartet when they were very young. People immediately noticed their skills, and they were on the Andy Williams Show in the 1960s. The whole family went to Los Angeles because of that achievement, where music and TV would soon take over their life. Marie was just 4 years old when she first appeared on TV in 1964 on the Andy Williams Show. Marie was different from most little girls since her life was tightly related to show business. She spent a lot of time at home with her mother and younger brothers, Verl, Tom, Donnie, and Jimmy. She felt closest to Donnie of all her siblings. Marie once said, "Donnie and I were wild playmates who never let our mother rest." But those days in childhood weren't only about playing. They always had music in their life. Whether it was writing songs, singing together, or practicing instruments. Years later, they remembered it well and said, "I never knew a day of my childhood life when music wasn't being played, practiced, written, or sung." Marie had a very different childhood than most kids. It should have been a period of carefree enjoyment. She felt a lot of pressure to do well in her life. Even before she started kindergarten, when other kids were solely worried with education or friends, she was in the spotlight. That early stardom changed her in both positive and bad ways. A childhood full with effort and stress. Marie had her debut performance with Andy Williams when she was only 3 years old. On stage, she sang and danced with him. Marie didn't have much choice, even though most kids would be scared. It was the start of a career that would never stop. Marie thought back to that time after Andy Williams died in 2012 and considered him a guiding light in her life. She thanked him not only for helping her improve her singing, but also for giving her some of her best childhood memories. But life wasn't as glamorous as it looked behind the bright lights. Marie wrote in her memoir, "Might as well laugh about it now," that her parents made sure that all of the Osmond kids had the greatest teachers and choreographers money could buy. It was required that each sibling learn an instrument and then teach it to the others. Marie got the marimba. She didn't want to play it, but that didn't matter. Someone else decided her path for her. Marie talked about how hard it was to grow up in such a demanding atmosphere as she looked back. Marie had to deal with the stress of finding her own place in music while her brothers were famous as the Osmonds. What happened next would change her life for good. Fame as a teenager and a big break in country music. Marie and her brothers had already created the Osmonds by 1970, and they were having success after hit. The family observed how well Marie was doing and thought she could have a solo career as well. Marie chose to promote herself as a country performer instead of following her brothers into pop. She said that country music was the only type of music at the time that let women have a profession and a family at the same time. She made a demo of herself singing Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors when she was still a tween. Don Ovens of MGM Records listened to the tape and was so thrilled that he signed her to the Nashville branch of the firm. Marie was just 14 years old when everything in her life changed. In 1973, she put out her cover of Paper Roses, which went straight to the top of the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. This made her the youngest woman to ever have a #1 country single. More songs came after that, like Meet Me in Montana, There's No Stopping Your Heart, and You're Still New to Me, all of which reached the top of the charts. Marie worked with Donnie to make the variety show Donnie and Marie while also having a solo career. The show was a big hit and ran until 1979, making the two of them famous. Marie still had the same problems that had been bothering her since she was a youngster, even though she was laughing, dancing, and singing duets. She got everything from fame, but it also took everything from her. And as the 1980s came, her professional and personal life had to deal with new problems. Struggles with reinvention and a later career. The Osmond family lost a lot of their money in the early 1980s because they were having money problems. To help, she worked with her siblings, but she sometimes tried to do things on her own. She started her own variety program named Marie, but it didn't last long. She quickly went back to her country roots and signed with Capitol Records in 1985. It worked out. She put out the album There's No Stopping Your Heart and had more #1 hits. Marie had begun to branch out into other businesses by the 1990s. She made her own brand of collector dolls that were very famous on QVC. In 1994, she also made her Broadway debut in The King and I. She and Donnie got back together for a network chat program from 1998 to 2000. During that period, she talked about her biggest problem, postpartum depression, in public. Because she was honest, her book Behind the Smile was published. My Journey Out of Postpartum Depression, where she talked about her pain and how she was getting better. Marie took on more ventures in later years, such as her radio show Marie and Friends in 2004 and Dancing with the Stars in 2007. In 2008, she and Donnie got back together again, this time for a stay at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. Their performance lasted for more than 10 years, until 2019. Showing that fans still liked the two siblings. Marie was always changing who she was. She came back with solo albums like I Can Do This in 2010, Music is Medicine in 2016, and Unexpected in 2021. She was even a co-host on The Talk from 2019 to 2020 and was in a number of Lifetime movies, such as the Christmas edition in 2020. Marie Osmond's path has been long, hard, and amazing. She went from being a tiny girl who sang on stage with Andy Williams to a country star, Broadway actor, doll designer, and TV personality. Speaking of which, she was hiding a big secret behind her smile, her battle with eating disorders. In the 1970s, when the Donnie and Marie program was at its peak, she was under a lot of pressure to lose weight. In an interview with Page Six, she talked about an event that altered everything. She alleged that a studio head grabbed her aside and told her, "You're an embarrassment to your family. You're overweight. You can't stop eating, thus 250 people are going to lose their jobs." Those kinds of words can hurt anyone. And for a teenage girl, that was the end of the world. Marie spoke about how this experience led her to bad habits in her book Might As Well Laugh About It Now. She said she would lie about eating breakfast and dinner, and for 4 days a week, she just drank water mixed with lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup. She said, "I still didn't feel thin enough. Even when I was too weak from hunger to do the dance sequences in the show." After the show was over, her problems didn't go away. Body image problems stayed with her as she grew up. The singer Karen Carpenter's death in 1983 made people all around the world aware of eating problems. But for Marie, it was also a big change in her life. She understood that the way she treated herself was affecting her fans. Women wrote to her and asked how they could look like her after they had a baby. That's when she realized she needed to change. "It affected how I thought about my body image forever," as she wrote later. But she had more than just eating disorders to deal with throughout those years. Another pain came from always being compared to other performers who were also insecure in the spotlight. The Donnie and Marie program was a great hit. It had music, comedy, and guests who were some of the biggest names of the day. It appeared like a great job from the outside, but for Marie, it was often a nightmare. She was only 16 when the show started, and she subsequently said in her book, Might As Well Laugh About It, that being around beautiful actresses and singers made her feel insignificant. Meeting Cher was one of those moments that really stuck with me. She remembered how it affected her confidence when she and Donnie guest starred on the Sonny and Cher show. She said, "I felt like the ugly duckling. Cher always made a big deal out of everything. I believed I was going to drown in my embarrassment no matter what she did." That wasn't the end of it. Marie stood next to icons like Jacqueline Smith, Cheryl Ladd, and Farrah Fawcett on her own stage. Farrah had recently become renowned for her red bathing suit poster. She was also on stage with Raquel Welch, a woman who is famous all around the world for how beautiful she is. As a teenager, it was too much. Marie said, standing on stage next to Raquel Welch and comparing my looks to hers made me hate myself. I felt like a poser playing dress up when I left my changing room. The audience saw a confident celebrity, but every time she went on stage, she felt unsure of herself. A lot of young stars would have broken down because of these doubts. But Marie's problems extended far deeper, putting her in situations and environments that no child should have to deal with. The ugly truth about being a child celebrity. Marie began her job when she was just 3 years old. That means she grew up in a field where kids were typically not treated well. In her memoir, Behind the Smile, she said that in certain cases, people treated her more like a product than a person. One of the stories she told was rather frightening. She was only 11 years old when she flew to Japan to make a commercial. The filming took place at sea, and something terrible happened. The boat turned over. Marie was suddenly swimming in the ocean with sharks all around her. She was saved, which was a good thing, but the nightmare didn't end there. She wasn't sent home. Instead, she had to go back to the site to keep filming. She was tired, dehydrated, and blistering from sunburn by the end of the week. This is only one illustration of how unsafe it was for young performers back then. She also talked about how she was bullied at recording studios and how people pressed her to sing or act without inquiry, ignoring what she thought. She said that over time, I came to believe and accept that my opinion was the least important of everyone else's on practically every assignment. To make things worse, the financial advisors her parents employed were so poor with their money that the family was almost bankrupt by the end of the 1970s. While the Donnie and Marie program was still on the air, something happened. Marie worked 80 hours a week when she was a teenager. She was just becoming an adult when the program was canceled, but her life had already been impacted by years of hard work, stress, and scars that would take decades to heal. And those scars got even deeper when Marie boldly told horrible secrets and near-death experiences years later. Marie revealed things in her book, Behind the Smile, that horrified her fans. There are various ways to treat someone badly. The worst thing that happened to her was the physical trauma she went through as a child. She never said who was to blame, simply that it wasn't her family. She said that every time her abuser was someone her parents thought was safe, they told her not to tell or her family would lose everything. She kept it a secret for years, even from her brothers. She only told the truth after she had kids of her own. The effects of maltreatment stayed with her until adulthood. She wrote, the debilitating effect of abuse on the human spirit and the ability to function on a daily basis. She said that even after many years, she still had trouble understanding that being wrong doesn't mean you did something wrong. She never entirely got over the sorrow of those memories, but her fights weren't only in her head. She had a scary vehicle accident when she was only 16 years old. She was driving when she abruptly lost consciousness. The crash was bad. Marie slammed the steering wheel so hard that it bent and she almost lost her eye. Her mother, who was accompanying her, hit the windshield and her lungs collapsed. They both had to go to the hospital right away, and Marie was warned that her mother might not make it through the night. Marie stated she felt terrible guilt when she was in the hospital. Years later, she told the chat show that she felt like she had killed her mother. But something odd happened that made her feel better. She told me she could see her granddad. She asked him if he had come to get her mother. He said simply, no, and then he assured her that her mother was not leaving. Marie said it changed everything for me in so many ways. Her mother lived, and for Marie, the event showed her that there really is serenity after death. Marie Osmond's life was never easy. She went through abuse, accidents, celebrity, and dread. But each narrative demonstrates not only her problems, but also the strength she had as she got older. Family, love, and marriage. Marie Osmond's personal life has been full of love, tragedy, and new opportunities. She was briefly engaged to acting student Jeff Creighton in May 1979, but the engagement barely lasted 2 months. She also went out with singer Andy Gibb around the same period, and in 1981, she briefly dated John Schneider. In 1982, she married her first husband, Stephen Lyle Craig, who played basketball at Brigham Young University. They had a kid named Stephen James Craig in 1983, but the marriage didn't last. The pair split up in 1985. Steve and I tried several times to make our very young marriage work, but it didn't work out. The tabloids were watching me closely, and the paparazzi seemed to follow me everywhere I went. I was worn out emotionally. Marie married record producer Brian Blossel in 1986. She liked his caustic sense of humor. When they met at a family gathering, they had 7 kids together, Rachel and Matthew, who were their own kids, and Jessica, Michael, Brandon, Brianna, and Abigail, who they adopted. But the marriage terminated in 2007 after 21 years. They put out a unified statement declaring that no one was to blame, but the truth was more complicated. Marie later said that it was preferable for her kids to watch their parents divorce than to grow up in a house where 2 people were very unhappy. After her divorce, she assured everyone that she never intended to get married again. Love, however, came to her in an unexpected way. Her son set up a meeting for her with her first husband, Steve Craig. They got back together, dated in secret for 2 years, and then got married again in 2011. Marie walked down the aisle at the Las Vegas Mormon Temple in the same attire she wore to their first wedding in 1982. Later, she told People magazine, "The thing about a second marriage is that you realize things you thought were so important aren't. I love being with my husband. He is the kindest person I know. He lives to help others and genuinely pays attention to what they need." But even though she found happiness again in love, her family went through a tragedy that no mother ever wants to go through. Heartbreak at the death of a son. Marie Osmond's son Michael, who was only 18 years old, killed himself in 2010. Her followers were horrified by the news, and her family was heartbroken. Marie talked about what had happened over time. She said that he was bullied a lot on the talk show, even up until the moment he killed himself since he was sober. I have the texts. They're awful. She said she never stood up to the bullies, but she hoped there were consequences for their actions. But the pain didn't stop there. Marie decided to go back to work just a week after his funeral. A lot of people attacked her for it, saying she should have taken more time off. She said she did it for the sake of her other kids. She wanted to show children that life had to go on even when things were bad. She still felt the loss of him years later. She admitted on CBS Sunday Morning, 9 years after Michael's murder, "I don't think you're ever through it. I believe God gives you breaks, and then all of a sudden it will hit you like it did that day. What you leave behind has a big effect on others." Those statements revealed that grief never fully goes away. It changes shape, yet it stays. Marie had already been through a lot of hard times, but she was about to face another one that would damage her and her kids. Fighting depression after giving birth. Marie Osmond wrote the book Behind the Smile in 2001. In it, she talked about postpartum depression, a sorrow that wasn't talked about much at the time. She wrote about how she felt like a failure and empty after having a baby in the book. She said that her kids would check her mood before they talked to her because she was always depressed. She told how one neighbor brought her baked goods and she told them she simply wanted to be left alone. The melancholy was too much to handle. She gave her infant to her nanny and several blank checks and stated she had to go at one point. She got in her car and drove up the Pacific Coast Highway. Later, she said, "There is no light, no joy anywhere in me. I'm completely alone." She even admitted that she understood why someone would take their own life because the only emotions she felt were negative ones. Looking back in a 2023 interview, she explained that her choice to write the book was about breaking the silence for women everywhere. But even as she spoke about her depression, she also faced criticism for the way she loved and supported her own daughter. Love, acceptance, and cruel reactions. In 2013, Marie Osmond sat down with Diane Sawyer. During the interview, she spoke about her daughter, Jessica, who had come out as gay. For Marie, there was never a question of love. She said it broke her heart, not because of who her daughter was, but because she knew how cruel the world could be. Marie has always been outspoken about marriage equality. She told Sawyer, "My daughter deserves everything she desires in life. She's a good girl. She's a wonderful child. I don't think God made one color flower, I think He made many." On the talk, she also described the cruelty she faced after attending her daughter's wedding. Her message was simple. You should never shame anyone, especially for loving your child. Unfortunately, not everyone in her own family agreed. Her brother, Alan Osmond, condemned being gay as a choice and even hosted an event in Utah called Celebration of Marriage. Every child deserves a mom and a dad. Despite the backlash, Marie stood firm. She reminded the world that love should never be conditional. She believed that her daughter and every child deserved happiness. But her own family's rejection showed how difficult it can be to live by that belief. And still, through heartbreak, depression, and tragedy, Marie Osmond continued to stand as a mother who put love above everything else. But did you know that Marie Osmond has faced more tragedy than most people could ever imagine? A family marked by loss. In 2004, she and her siblings lost their beloved mother, Olive. She had suffered a stroke 2 years earlier and complications finally took her life. Just 3 years later in 2007, their father George also passed away at the age of 90. These losses were difficult, but sadly, they were not the end of heartbreak for the Osmond family. In 2014, tragedy struck Marie's brother Jay's family. His 7-year-old granddaughter was killed in a horrific accident when she was crushed by the door of a moving truck. The family was devastated, and the pain only grew in 2022, when the little girl's father, Chris Mortensen, was shot and killed in a road rage incident. The accused was arrested, but the loss left another scar on the family. In 2018, more grief came when Marie's 33-year-old nephew suddenly died, most likely from an undiagnosed medical condition. Speaking at the funeral, Marie's words showed her deep understanding of grief. She said, "I know that feeling of utter despair, praying to wake up from a horrible nightmare and not being able to breathe. I remember that seemingly impossible task to continue on." These painful experiences would have been enough to break anyone, but Marie's heart was tested again with the loss of someone who had been by her side her whole life, her brother Wayne, saying goodbye to Wayne Osmond. On January 1, 2025, Wayne Osmond passed away after suffering a massive stroke. For Marie, the pain was almost too much to put into words. She shared her feelings on Instagram, explaining that she had been taking a break from social media, but felt she had to honor him. She recalled that just a few weeks before his death, she had felt a strong need to visit him. "I really felt the spirit compel me to go see him, and I'm so thankful I listened to what I was feeling. I will cherish those hours I spent with him for the rest of my life. I didn't know that just a few days after my visit, he would have a massive stroke." Marie admitted that since Wayne's death, she hadn't been able to do interviews or speak much publicly, saying, "The truth is, it's just too hard to put into words." She stated he was one of the most caring men she had ever known and that his death left another huge hole in her heart. Marie thought of Wayne as more than just a skilled performer. He was her brother, her safe spot, and the person she went to for guidance and long talks. She spoke kind things about how much he loved his wife Kathy and how much he cared about his kids and grandkids. She closed her tribute with these touching words, "Wayne, I could not cherish the gift God gave me more than to be loved by you in this life. You are a real brother who loves me, and I will miss you so terribly. With every fiber of my heart and soul, I will always attest to my enormous love for you." The Osmond family came together in sadness, commemorating Wayne's legacy and the fresh season of life it brought. Marie made a passionate remark on social media in April 2025. Said she had taken a break to spend time with her family and do what she thought God wanted her to do. She wrote, "My family has always been my first priority, and this season has given me some great and one-of-a-kind times with them." She said that taking a break from the spotlight had given her the most normal life she had ever lived. Marie chuckled because she had never really knew what normal was because she had been performing since she was 3. But she loved being with her kids and grandkids and being there for them. One of the stories she told highlighted how much this meant to her. Marie said yes right away when her daughter called in a panic and asked if she could pick up her granddaughter from school. The answer her daughter gave her really moved her. "It's great that you're here and ready to help. Thanks a lot for helping me out today. It means the world to me." Marie said those words meant more than any award or accolade she had ever received. Her post was filled with gratitude and faith. She reminded her followers that life is about choices, about love, and about service. She wrote that challenges can make us better people if we let them, teaching humility, compassion, and strength. By striving to hear Him, we grow daily in faith and see how God's unconditional love creates daily miracles for us, she shared. She also spoke about her continued work with the Children's Miracle Network, which she co-founded. She celebrated its 42nd anniversary and paid tribute to her dear friend, Joe Lake, one of the co-founders who had recently passed away. He was a man full of love and compassion for others and had a heart totally dedicated to service, she wrote. Through her message, she reminded everyone that service and love are the greatest gifts in life. She closed by thanking her fans, calling them family, and reminding them how much she loved them. In her words, "Honestly, you have blessed me so much more than I could ever have done for you. Your family, never ever forget that and how much I love you." Which part of Marie Osmond's life story surprised you the most? Her struggles, her family tragedies, or how she lives today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.